Hello, Chiefs Kingdom, and happy 2021 to everyone. Welcome to the Milwaukee Chiefs cast live from the Wolf Den. I am Chris.
And I'm Josh, and this week we are recapping Week 16, where the Chiefs beat the Falcons at Arrowhead by a score of 17-14. Next regular season game is the finale, Week 17, which is Sunday, January 3rd, 2021, as Chris mentioned, at 3:25 Central, as we welcome the Chargers, not from San Diego, but actually from LA, into Arrowhead. And a big reminder that all Southeast Wisconsin residents are invited to join us for game day. Visit MKEChiefsfans.com.
Today we will be talking Chiefs, also covering fantasy football and the upcoming playoff scenario. Today joining us is fellow Milwaukee Super Chiefs fan, Adrian Love.
And we also have our producer, Andy Richter-esque Brian Reynolds, who's our producer / sound engineer / editor. Our sponsor, of course, is Complete Weddings and Events, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth, lighting, and coordination services. Visit them at CompleteWeDo.com. Let's jump right into the Chiefs. Adrian, as the guest, you get the chance to go first.
Okay. So a few takes on the game. I thought it was a really fun game. In a general sense, it was a game that was unnecessary. I didn't think the team had to fight like that. We've had too many close call games, too many 7 points or less games in the past few weeks. And in the general sense, it feels like we're just playing to the strength of the other team. Like we're just toying with them in this general sense. I don't feel like you need to do that in week 16. But outside of that, I did feel like we always had the game in hand. Never felt like we were ever going to lose it. It always felt like if we were ever down, and we were, that Mahomes was just going to kind of flip a switch. And, of course, that's exactly what happened. And when he flips a switch, the team flips a switch, so to speak. So it was one of those type of games where it just kind of had to happen, so to speak. It's just a long season. You don't want it to happen, but it's one of those games that creeps up on you. Just late in the season, though. But I'm not too worried for the playoffs.
Yeah. Sounds good. Chris, what do you got?
I can honestly say that this is the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era that I will utter the words, the defense picked up the offense. Those guys are making plays out there. And also the offense got a bit defensive thanks to Tyreek Hill. But, yeah, this is a rock fight. I share the sentiment with Adrian that we tend to play down to our competition at times. But this was a game that was just – it boggled my mind considering the matchup seems so perfect for the Chiefs offense. I mean, you're facing the 32nd ranked pass defense in the NFL. And this was, arguably maybe the most difficult game that Patrick Mahomes has had in his career to this point. But still, this is the difference between this year's Chiefs versus, let's say, 2013 to 2017 is that you got a quarterback that's going to make a play to win the game at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I think to look at that's a bit of a silver lining on this is that this team finds ways to win in so many different ways. You've got the defense, you got Willie Gay forcing fumbles, you have Tyreek Hill chasing down the defender 60 yards down the field, DK Metcalf style, to keep him from scoring what would have been a pivotal touchdown. So, I mean, this team, even if they do come out and they look a bit flat, you still can't deny the fact that this team knows and wants to win as much as anyone in the NFL.
Gotcha. Well, one more cheers to the new year. Today I'm drinking a mimosa, and again, they don't sponsor us, but if they want to, champagne, we're open. Sorry, sparkling wine too. We don't want to just be elitist and want only French champagne. So my overall take was pretty similar to what you guys had to say. That was an ugly game, but really when it comes down to it, all wins are pretty, especially if they lock in a number one seed in a bye. So there you go. I mean, we essentially wrapped our season last week as we prepare to rest starters, especially Mahomes in week 17. So if we look at it as that's the season, we went 14-1, which is pretty awesome. And that was something of a fitting end, where we had a 15 cracks by teams that were playing in their Super Bowl. That was what the season looked like. And Atlanta was no different. Those guys clearly showed up to play. We, along with about everybody else who follows the team, have spent all of our time wanting to see more from our defense, and by God, we did. The defense showed up and showed out against what's not a joke of an offense. They have a running game. They have great receivers, and the defense actually, like Chris said, picked up the offense, which was crazy. Mahomes basically threw his way out of the MVP. I would say that it probably goes to Rodgers. Every conversation that we had this week with Eric Eager from Pro Football Focus and Pete Sweeney from SB Nation Arrowhead Pride, I think we all agreed that unfortunately Rodgers probably has everything set up at this point, especially after that game. So, there we go. But Mahomes is going to get his well-deserved week off in Week 17. The playoffs run through Arrowhead, and the goal at this point is another Super Bowl win, and Mahomes can make being the Super Bowl MVP his goal, and trophies are trophies are trophies at this point. So, Brian, do you got anything before we go into plays?
Just want to thank Atlanta for not closing. I mean, let's all be honest. We were one interception away from having a heartbreak of a day there. It was right in his hands, and he dropped it. And obviously, there's like two just boneheaded mistakes there at the end of that. I like the fact that we're always in position to close the deal, and we're always in position to win. And I'm with everyone else where I'm like, it just never really felt like at this point, it's just like we always find a ways to win. But I just get when it comes down to a professional athlete dropping a wide open interception like that, like let's not get too comfortable with that. So, but obviously, it's a win is a win, and I'm glad to see we made it out there.
Let's also not forget Atlanta's got 4 wins for a reason. Atlanta figures out ways to lose. We figure out ways to win. Adrian, what did you have to say?
I have to piggyback on that. That drop. If that was a Chiefs player, that would have been one of the most momentous drops I've ever seen in my life. It's just something that you shouldn't do. I mean, you have to be able to have ball control. I mean, that's what I've never seen a team that you play to win the game, and it's your Super Bowl basically, and you lose concentration at the most important moment of the game. I don't understand this, but yeah, like you said, that's why they are four wins into the season. So stuff like that.
Keep in mind, some of the personnel's changed, but this is still the team that had the 328. So, not to pile on the Falcons any more than is necessary, but some of that stuff just kind of has to be said at this point. So favorite play, my favorite play of the game was that Robinson touchdown at the end of the game. It was 2nd and 10 at the Atlanta 25, just inside the 2-minute warning. It was a situation where clearly it was a game. Mahomes wasn't at his best, but he makes a throw and gets it done, and we all knew it was going to happen. The ball left his hand. You knew it was going into somebody's hands for a touchdown. It's just the comfort that we've been able to live in. That was my favorite play of the game. Adrian, what do you got?
My favorite play of the game, that would be the attempted pass to Mahomes, that little trick play where in the second quarter, it doesn't go anywhere. It's an interception. It's a horrible play. But I'm just saying the attempt. I love the attempt in Week 16. Might as well, right? Let's just see what happens. Let's just throw people off and give people something to kind of scratch their heads on.
Yeah, set up some tape there for maybe later on in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Brian, what was your favorite play besides the missed field goal at the end?
Hey, that was my favorite. I always pick me, I always pick the whenever the other team screws up. So, yeah, I was going to also say the pass to Mahomes there. That was like, oh, hey, well, this is different. But you know how it is. It's just like, oh, let's try some fun plays like that. So one of those two. But I'm going to lean towards the missed kick. You know how much fun that was.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to say my call for the best play call of the game was that Watkins pass. It didn't work. It probably wasn't a good idea. It probably wasn't really a good play, but kind of like Adrian said, I like that we keep throwing stuff at him, and it just makes me believe that Reed has a plan. He's got some stuff that we're going to be seeing in the playoffs, and hope the league's ready. I hope they're not, but I hope the league's ready. So Chris, what was your best play call?
The best play call was right after the dropped interception in the end zone. They go back for the throat and the double move to Marcus Robinson for the game winner. So I love the killer instinct, and you've got the arguably the best late game quarterback in the NFL right now, Patrick Mahomes.
Adrian, what do you got? Best play call.
Best play call. This might be a couple things here. So really, getting his Kelsey getting his 1,000th receiving yard for the season for the 5th season in a row. I love hearing those type of stats that build upon one another. I love hearing receivers and players as a whole just getting their just rewards and recognition. So stuff like that really works for me. But if it's not going to be the offensive side, it really had to be the back-to-back sacks that we had with Clark and Jones. I love hearing that type of stuff. When the announcer gets into it, you know it's good. You know it's good.
Brian, best play call.
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna. Oh gosh, I would say I just like us. Let's point out when Kelsey got his was that record break? What record did he break on that one play? Was it 1,000 yards again, or was it?
Well, every single week he's extending what that is. I mean, he's at 14-16 for the season right now. I mean, it's literally the best pass catching tight end season in the history of the NFL, and we're watching it every week. He's the number 2 receiver behind Stephon Diggs, who's, put Josh Allen into MVP consideration with the way that he catches the ball and everything. So yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah. And I gotta say, I love hearing the names Gay and Dana and Snead when the defense is out there.
Basically, my favorite play calls anytime they throw it to Tyreek Hill or Kelsey, because it seems like when those two are whenever I hear any stats breakdown on any game, it's like they're always so in terms of receiving and catching. It's like, well, the weapons that we have just receiving the throws from Mahomes. It's just like I love seeing they're breaking new records every week. So that's my thing right now. I'm big on that.
Yeah, they could have a canned graphic of, well, the Chiefs are being mean to everybody again, and show a Hill or a Kelsey.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing we want to jump into is the old friend alert, and my old friend for the week was Bob Sutton. We pretty much cursed his name at the end of his time in Kansas City for never having the D ready to go, but that Falcons D was ready to go. Sutton's on their staff, and I think we can be sure that he had something to do with that. So, Adrian, who's your old friend of the week?
Really just over down in the Texans, our old friend, our old coach, just everything that he's had to take on this year. It just kind of throws, it's kind of nice to me to see that he's even having a chance, even though they're not winning. So other than that, I don't really have much in that regard, but I do think that just the fact that he's going down there and even having to show off again is something else. I never really put him to have a chance in the NFL again as a head coach. So just to have a few games in there, kind of interesting to watch him.
Chris, who you got?
Well, nothing really pertaining to this game, so I'm actually going to go a bit off the grid here. So the Tennessee Titans defense, as I guess if they end up making the playoffs, if they continue on with what they have is 15 sacks right now, and if they don't record, I think the record is 19 sacks, which is the fewest ever by a playoff team in a 16-game season. But the stat that I found also on this is that it also makes a callback to the seasons in which teams had the fewest sacks in an NFL season. So the 2008 Chiefs, that record you still hold. So way to go, guys, I guess. But that was 10 sacks in one season by the 2008 Chiefs. I guess I'm going to make a callback to those guys, to Tom Bahali, Jason Babin, Alfonso Boone, Ron Edwards. I mean, that was a rough season.
Mm-hmm. Brian, any old friends we want to talk about before we start getting into music?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I've seen this video before, and I watched it recently. It was YouTube search greatest play Kansas City Chiefs history. It's a play that shows Don Terry Poe throwing a touchdown. He does a fake. They thought he was on a refrigerator play, running into during the Broncos game. Turns out he threw a pass. I kind of spoiled the fun, but if you watched it on YouTube, yes, the greatest play in KC Chiefs history. It's really funny. It's a really great video about Don Terry Poe. So I'm remind everyone to throw his name out there. It's a great video.
Don Terry Poe. All right. So if last week was a song, that's a thing we've been doing every single week. We did a full playlist for the season with Pete Sweeney earlier in the week. That's a video that's going to be coming out here really soon as well, with liner notes for the thing if it was a full CD album, if you will. But for this particular week, from your perspective, Adrian, if this week was a song, what is the song that's in your head?
I kind of just went straight to, I don't know if anyone's heard this one, but Devo's Working in the Coal Mine, or any version of that, Working in the Coal Mine. It's one of those type of games where it just happens. You kind of have to deal with the dirty stuff. It was one of those games, like you got their best hit, you got their best shot, and we just kind of swung back. So yeah, there you go.
If I'm not mistaken, that was off their Freedom of Choice album that also had Freedom of Choice and the song Whip It. So yes, I've heard of that Devo song.
There you go.
The weirdest text I got from Josh one time was he sent me a text from a Devo concert. I was like, what the hell are you doing at a Devo concert? You're like having the best time ever. What are you doing?
Yeah, so good quick expansion on that. Devo played at the Summerfest one year, and come to find out, a coworker that I used to have is a nephew of Bob and Jerry Casale, who are the like cloud guitar player and the lead guitar player for Devo. And I can't remember exactly which one. One of them passed away about 5 years ago. So, you know, R.I.P. to Devo. But they were kind of the musical force behind that band. And then, of course, Mark Mothersbaugh, the lead singer and most of the creative, you know, drive behind Devo. If you want to see somebody who's just done a ton of stuff that nobody really knows that's happening, look up Mark Mothersbaugh. Just go to IMDb or type in his Wikipedia page, and you'll see just a litany of things that he's contributed to from a creative perspective for music that just has a lasting effect that you have no idea. I mean, that's one of the most influential bands in history, and how the hell they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is completely just insane to me. But anyway, now that we've had our Devo sidetrack, Chris, what do you have for a song for the week?
Well, first, shout out to you, Brian. I had to put Don Terry Poe in the background here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. That's the exact play.
Poe fades back in. That's the
right.
game.
By the way, 4.98 40-yard dash, and that dude's 346 pounds.
No kidding.
You know, so I like to think about if that guy hit me going that fast. You know that scene from Monty Python where the bunny bites that guy and just falls apart? That's basically what would happen to me if that guy hit me. Like, I just fall to pieces, like, turn to dust.
I don't know you'd be thinking about much if you got hit by him moving forward.
I could rather be hit by a car.
It would be pretty much the same experience.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I guess the song for me, just as a whole, I mean, you think about this entire season retrospectively and where I thought we would be at this time. I thought we would win the division. I was hoping we would have a week, you know, to do whatever we wanted to here in week 17, and lo and behold, we do. So for me, it's Everything in Its Right Place by Radiohead is my song and feeling of the week.
Nice. Brian, you got a song for us?
Yeah, I was thinking about this before we logged on, and it was one thing leads to another. Back to the drop INT, which then we follow through with between the touchdowns, pulling ahead, dropped INT, and then the missed field goal. Like one thing led to another, and we found our way out of that one.
Yes, the fix, one thing does lead to another. All right, so we've been, this is our 11th full recording episode, and shockingly enough, I haven't picked a single song that's a Hamilton reference at this point, so I'm gonna fix that right now. And my song for the week is The Battle of Yorktown from Hamilton, which is of course telling the story of the U.S. closing out the game against the British in that little thing we like to call the Revolutionary War. And the main hook at the end is the world turned upside down, and it was a whole thing where, you know, nobody could have fathomed watching, you know, the United States, this little upstart American experiment, take out the British Empire and the best Navy in the world. But that's what happened. And so this is going to kind of jump right into stats for the week, because really the world turned upside down roughly 3 years ago. And so just full disclosure, recording this on New Year's Day in the morning, so the first day of 2021. But yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of when one Patrick Mahomes took the field for an NFL team. So my stat is 3, as in 3 years ago, we had Mahomes under center, and he came in and gave Chiefs fans a glimpse into the reasoning why we finally traded up to get our franchise quarterback. he gave us a first illustration of what would prove to be just complete validation to Brett Veach as a top flight talent evaluator. I mean, the dude became a GM based on picking Patrick Mahomes and very few other things. I mean, that's not to downplay the amount of work that he's done to get to where he is. I'm sure it was a lot of other things, but really when you're making a decision to give a guy of his age a job like he has, there's got to be some kind of just crown jewel plume thing that he has going on. Mahomes also gave us, the bit of comfort that we're in good hands when the AS11 time frame ended up, coming to a close. And I know that, we're all AS11 fans, and it's one of those things, but careful what you wish for. I mean, you can just look no further than the Denver Broncos to see what happens when you keep thinking you've come up with a quarterback and you just don't. You can be in non-playoff hell forever, but we do have him. I don't think the NFL knew how much the world was turned upside down until somewhere in the 9 to 10 month period of time after that. But I'm sure just enjoying this ride that we've been on since Mahomes has been there. We turned the world upside down. We're witnessing history, and it's on our team, and it's super cool. So, Chris, what do you got for stats?
I got a tweet from James Palmer here. So there have been 4 instances in NFL history that 2 players on the same team have recorded 1,250 plus receiving yards and 10 plus receiving touchdowns in the same season. This has happened 4 times. And Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are 2 of the 4. So they did it again this year. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So shout out to those guys.
Adrian, stats, what do you got?
In a general sense, that was going to be my stat, but in a more esoteric sense, just knowing that our injury report isn't as bad as we might have heard and thought of last week as we were watching the game from the week before, watching Clyde Edwards-Helaire with his injury, just thinking throughout the week what was going to happen and how we're going to have to prepare to the playoffs, and just knowing that with 3 weeks' time, he'll likely be back. That was my favorite stat of the week, to tell the truth. But yeah.
Brian, any stats you got?
Someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I was on Instagram and I saw the QB ratings so far this season, and I think Mahomes is just a little bit ahead of Rodgers. Don't know if that's still the case, but we're talking about the MVP for the year, and obviously the discussion is Rodgers versus Mahomes, and I think the spectrum's the needle's kind of leaning towards Rodgers. But I do recall seeing that Mahomes is edging him out on the fantasy football numbers. Not that decides the end-all be-all of who is the MVP, but I just wanted to point that out. That the last time I checked, and also correct me if I'm wrong, that Mahomes is currently leading the fantasy football rating for QB over Rodgers at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about fantasy football, and that's not going to swing anything real, but if you just want to get an idea of what the landscape looks like, just log into your fantasy account, and it doesn't really matter what sport you're talking about. It's a good litmus test, if nothing else. But yeah, I mean, to get into the type of numbers that are going to get into MVP, you have QB rating, you've got the QBR, which is the advanced metric, you have the touchdown to interception ratio, and then you have the overall yards passing. And I think they're about split 50-50 on that, but Rodgers is leading in the QBR and the touchdown to interception ratio, which is probably where the voters are going to end up picking stuff. But if you want to look at just raw yardage and actual QB rating over the course of the season, yeah, Mahomes is doing better. And I'm reluctant to say that I don't care who wins that award, but if it comes down to having a Super Bowl or having an MVP award, I think we all know which one we want. The only thing I think of, Bill Simmons, who I've read a ton of, and I bring him up from time to time. If you read his 700 or 800 page book of basketball, which I highly recommend, it's like the history of the NBA. He talks about MVP awards, and he takes serious exception to like the year that Karl Malone won the league MVP in 1998. And his whole thing is like, that should be the size of a Buffalo nickel, because that was basically a lifetime achievement award for Malone, rewarding his best season. And Michael Jordan turned around and just curb stomped him in the playoffs. And that's when the flu game and everything like that happened. But his whole point is, this stuff matters, and that award matters, because somewhere down the line, 200 years from now, when every single one of us are all dead and anybody who got to watch Michael Jordan play is dead, you're going to look back and be like, oh, that guy had a pretty okay career, X number of MVP trophies and stuff like that. And you just lose the context. And you can kind of see some of that happening with Bill Russell. The number of people that actually witnessed Bill Russell is going down. And, when you talk about the greatest NBA player ever, Russell's name should probably come up with Jordan and LeBron, ever, and it doesn't. So
yeah, I guess to kind of piggyback on the Mahomes versus Rodgers, the argument that I get really tired of is the fact that, well, Rodgers deserves it more because he has less to work with.
Sure.
Which I think is pretty inaccurate, in the sense that he has probably a top 5 offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Bakhtiari is probably the best left tackle in football.
Torn ACL, by the way.
That's right. I mean, it's just, yeah, and okay, yeah, so he doesn't have Hill and Kelsey, but he still has Devontae Adams. He has Aaron Jones, who's
yes,
top
Jones
5
and
running
Williams.
back.
I mean, look at his running game.
I know.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. And A.J. Dillon showed out last weekend too. So I get tired of saying how much Mahomes has to work with and Rodgers doesn't. I think that's a really bunk argument, in my opinion.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's not Mahomes' problem that Brett Veach knows how to run a draft and can pick up a wide receiver. I mean,
trade up to get a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand how the Packers just never pick weapons. I mean, my personal belief is that if you have a Rodgers or a Mahomes and on your roster, there should be some offensive weapon picked in one of the first 3 picks pretty much every single year.
Mm-hmm.
So play the room and figure out what it is. But if you make it through the first 3 rounds of a draft without picking a tight end, a wide receiver, or a running back, and you've got one of those guys on your team, you're doing it completely wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
You want to set your defense up, but there needs to be a lineman every single time in one of those first 3 picks and an offensive weapon. And, if there's a season where all of a sudden we're, knee deep in linebackers that are all going to be gone in the first 3 rounds, fine, pick 3 of them. We're obviously bad in that department right now, but you gotta feed the weapon machine. So
yeah, well, to kind of go back to that, the Packers, I think, have fallen to this, but you think about the Vermeil Chiefs. I mean, that was a team that they were trying so desperately to improve the defensive side of the ball through the draft that the offense just continued to erode. And I think the Packers have fallen into the same thing. They've been defense early on. Now Rodgers has nothing to work with, but fine. I guess that's part of the reason why.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, I'd say it's almost like that, but the Packers did choose Love when they didn't have to. They went for a quarterback in the first round to almost like light a fire under Rodgers, and I mean that's one way to get results. Another way is to just draft a wide receiver in the first round and not have to worry about it. Feels like giving your top player on the team a little bit of a slight to try to light their fire isn't the best way to go about it long term, but. I'm not the Packers GM, although they do things a little bit different. They have a different ownership model, so I don't know if that impacted their view of how they should draft. Either way, I don't see the Chiefs doing that in the next 10 years. So,
no, while we're at it, I tell people, obviously being based in Milwaukee all the time, that Mark Murphy, their president of operations, the default owner guy, he's the worst. I mean, he's not Dan Schneider, but he's the worst. He sucks. I don't think that guy has any clue what he's doing. And I think about if you replace that guy with like a Clark Hunt or some engaged owner that has a clue, things are just better. Things are just better. I don't necessarily fault the Packer organization for letting Ted Thompson sit longer than he should have. I mean, all the talk is that he, for all rights and purposes, had his mind going, before it was all said and done. That all made sense. It's everything since Ted Thompson's been there that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. And, from my perspective, Mark Murphy is pretty much to blame for all of this, and that guy should be fired tomorrow. When Mike McCarthy was shown the door, Mark Murphy should have been right there with him and just been like, you two clowns have no idea what you're doing, so we're finding someone else. But anyway, want to jump into the playoff machine?
Let's do it.
Do it.
All right, it is a machine. All right, so you guys can see everything?
Yes, sir.
All right, so every week we jump into a handful of games on the NFL playoff machine that ESPN puts together. A super awesome visual tool. And so what we'll do is we're actually going to run through every single Week 17 game, and then we're going to give first-round playoff predictions based on how everything lands. So I guess here's the question. Chris, do we want to run, across the top and then across the bottom, or do we want to kind of jump around and make the points in a way starting with the NFC East?
Let's jump around.
All right. So we're going to jump up and get down, and we'll start with the NFC East. So there's 2 games that are NFC East. These are all divisional games for the end of the season, which I think is definitely one of the things that the NFL has done right over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do the NFC East. So we've got the Cowboys and the Giants, which I believe is a noon game. It should be nationally televised. And we have Washington football team versus the Eagles. So implications that we're looking at: Washington win and they're in regardless of whatever else happens. If Washington loses, then the other game is going to matter most. So let's start with this Sunday night football game, Washington and Philly. I don't see a world where Philly pulls this game off, just because all that would do is create chaos and it would make them look like an organization on any kind of upswing. I don't see that happening. So I'm going Washington here. Adrian, what do you think?
I'm leaning 80% Washington, 20% Eagles. I watched a couple of Eagles games this year, and they just look so disorganized as a whole. And Wentz he just went down to nothing. And who are they playing at quarterback now?
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen
Hurts.
Yeah.
And he had that one game when he took over, and then after that it was just all downhill from there. So I can't see how they're going to pull it off. But it's the NFL, and anything can happen, right?
It's true.
Chris, what do you
Just
think?
not against us, but against those two teams, anything can happen. So fine. Yeah.
For me, Alex is back at practice, so I've got the Washington football team winning this.
Brian, any thoughts? Are you going to talk us all into the Eagles?
Chaos. The Cowboys are going to win the NFC East.
Oh.
I want chaos.
So you got the Eagles then?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the stats right here, like 6-9 right there, right? Dallas and Washington, and I'm only saying that because I saw a meme of the Undertaker, and they put the Cowboys logo on him when he sits up every time the Undertaker, you think he's dead or playing dead, and he sits up, and they have that logo of the Cowboys star on that. So I'm not basing this off any you should probably pick Washington, but I just want to see the Cowboys win.
So by the way, the real chaos. Let's just play a game called "What Happens If Washington Win" or Washington loses and the Giants win. We would have a 6-10 team in the New York Giants going to the playoffs. So if you want chaos, this is a situation that you want. But I think that we're going to go ahead and say yes. We're going with Washington. Do we think the Cowboys make it interesting and win one more for their team to give them hope earlier in the day? Yes, I think so. I think so. So we got the Cowboys winning early, but Washington ultimately raining on their parade, which is great. And I can't wait to watch First Take with Stephen A. Smith on January 4th while he does his whole "I told you so" blah blah blah. So let's get into the second most interesting division that we have, which is the AFC North. So we have the Ravens playing the Bengals and the Steelers playing the Browns. And in both of those games, we have a team that could very easily be left out in the Ravens and also in the Browns. So, Adrian, which one do you want to pick first?
Okay, let's talk about the Ravens matchup here. They've been faltering too much towards the end of the season. They really aren't showing me much. And to be quite honest, I think the Bengals have what it takes. I'm going to go for the Bengals in that matchup. There was a little bit of Lamar showing off, I think it was last week. But at the same time, Joe Burrow is out, but the Bengals, I think, still have it in them. They've been solid all year long. They were supporting Burrow with a solid team all surrounding him. So I think because it's divisional too, it's the Bengals.
Chris, thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I commend the Bengals for the performance they had against the Steelers, where they came out and basically Ryan Finley turned into Tim Tebow or whatever, and that ended up being the Steelers. But I think that was probably their last trick of the year. I still like Baltimore in this game. I think without Joe Burrow, I don't think Cincinnati's going to be able to score enough to beat Baltimore.
Brian, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm leaning Ravens on that one as well. It's just they're tough to beat, and basically everyone's covered everything that I think is basically covered all the major points. So yeah, leaning Baltimore.
I'm going to go Baltimore as well. I do, however, think the Bengals show up for this game, and they do pull tricks out of the bag, and this helps just solidify that they've got the right coach, and that with Burrow back and some of the weapons that they're putting together, that they're a team that can make some noise. So last one that we have here, we've got the Browns and the Steelers, and there's a really, really good chance that a Browns loss means they're sitting at home. So I'm thinking that given the fact the Steelers are starting a backup quarterback, I think they've essentially decided to punt on week 17 and say we don't care who we're hosting because we're hosting. And the 3 seed is perfectly fine for us. So I don't think we get a whole lot out of the Steelers. I think it's a close game just because it's a divisional game, but I'm going Browns on this one.
Yeah, I am too, unless you have a repeat of Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph in this game. But I don't think that's
I
going to
forgot
happen.
about that.
No, I like the Browns too.
Adrian.
It's a pride game for the Browns. So yeah, leaning Browns.
Brian, are you going to come in and tell us that the Myles Garrett thing's going to happen again and that the Steelers win?
Well, yeah, the Steelers' cold streak and everything going on. I'm leaning towards Browns, but Steelers are on par with the New York Jets currently. So, my heart is going out to since week 15. But, yeah, Browns.
Cleveland.
And look at what this does right here. So, all right. So let's roll into the next division that has some serious implications here, and that's going to be the AFC South. So we've got Jags Colts, we have Titans Texans. So Jags Colts, is there going to be a game here? Are the Jags going to actually make this first overall draft pick thing interesting, or do the Colts just go in and take care of business? I'm inclined to say the Colts take care of business.
Yeah, they don't have to. I think they've locked it up now. So, Jacksonville has nothing to play for.
There's nothing. Oh, they've locked up the first overall pick?
They've locked it up, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So, yeah, I'm down with Indy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Colts.
All right. So this is getting interesting here. So we got some serious implications going on here with the Titans Texans, and to ruin the surprise, a Titans loss in this game. The next one we're going to jump to is Bills and Dolphins. We could see Tennessee with Derrick Henry rushing over 1,700 yards and a threat to beat anybody any week. Ryan Tannehill playing well, going home. So, Adrian, I'll start with you. Do the Titans take care of business on the road in Houston in a dome?
They probably should, but I don't think it means enough. Like I was saying earlier, I'm kind of like having a little bit of a fawning over for the Texans in a way this year. So I'm going to lean for the Texans because I feel like they still want to prove themselves a little bit. There's not much they've ever really proven out there in the field. So I think this is their chance to show that, hey, we can knock out a strong team, show that we have a team that can come back next year. They still have a great young quarterback. It really just comes down to proving that they can. And if there's ever a team to prove against, it's going to be a solid run game team with a solid defense like the Titans have. That's basically a team that it just sums up football as a whole. Strong run game, strong defense. So if they can pull it off, it's the Houston, but it's probably going to be the Titans to be truthful. But I'm hoping it's Houston.
Chris, where are we going?
Adrian, as you're explaining that game, I always think there's going to be this one unforeseen upset, which I've been so terrible at predicting so far.
Yes, we have an entire segment of how horrible we are at picking games coming up.
So I'm going to make my terrible prediction right now and say that Houston makes the upset. I think JJ Watt's pissed off. You know, if you don't care, there's the door speech after last week, and you got Romeo Crennel rallying the troops. Let's play one for Rack here. What the hell? I'm going to pick Houston without any actual football rationale here.
Brian, I'm ready to ride this train if you are.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
There we go.
Upset of the week.
Not gonna lie, I have half a mind to do this just for pure chaos, but I'm not going to. That's just too far. That's just too far.
Shoot magic.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So the next thing that we have is Dolphins Bills. Let's see. Okay, a Bills win gets the Titans in. A Dolphins win gets the Dolphins in. A Bills win does nothing for the Bills. So we're going Bills or Dolphins.
I'm going to go Dolphins, even though Fitzmagic is not going to be available for this game, but I still don't think it's going to matter.
I think Brian Flores has his guys ready to go, and they're sniffing that playoff matchup, and it's happening.
I'm good with that.
I agree. Although I will say, if this was like week 9 or 10, Miami's defense would be scaring the crap out of me. But things have tapered off towards the end of the season. They've kind of like come back to their statistical truth. But they can do a lot of damage out there, and they're really scary.
Well, the Dolphins also statistical truth is they can run the ball, and the Bills can't stop it. So there we go.
Yeah, it's weird. The Bills should be a good team, but when it comes down to it, when it comes to the playoffs, I don't think they can hold up against a team like Miami. But it's not the playoffs just yet. So for the game, it's a chance, the Bills, but I'm leaning towards Miami myself.
All right, let's go ahead and just fill out the rest of the AFC before we jump over into figuring out who the seeds are going to be for the NFC. Patriots, Jets. I mean, the Patriots have to win this at home, right? Any arguments there? Okay.
Yeah, it's the Jets.
Exactly. Raiders, Broncos. Do you want to give this one a tie just for fun?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no winner in that situation.
Yeah. Exactly. I always say every year I hope that game ends in a scoreless tie. So now.
So my line is always I root for a comet to hit the stadium, not one that actually kills anybody, but one of those comets that gives both teams a loss. I don't think that this exists, but if we could have that would be good. But a scoreless tie is the second best thing. So I guess here's the other big question. Do we win this game tomorrow, or do the Chargers figure out a way to not lose at the end?
So we're resting, right? Everyone says
we're resting a large contingent of the starters, like at least 7 starters.
Right.
But I can also see the defense. We're not resting anybody on defense, are we?
I think so. At least, even then, if we rest guys on defense, we still have,
Ward is
high draft picks. But yeah.
I know Ward is resting and at least one other defensive player, but I don't expect it's going to make a big difference.
And if Andy Reid can make Matt Moore look good, I mean, Chad Henne. Oh, no, I know. And that's what I'm saying. I'm going to take the Chiefs in a close one here.
I am too.
We have a really strong
pick.
Yeah.
All right.
I think our second string is just as good as a lot of the NFL's first string.
Yeah.
Cool.
So.
All right, we're homers. No question about it.
I want to go on record saying I don't know if we're going to pull this one out because they played us so well last time with the OT and without our heavy hitters out there doing it. So I'll be that guy right now.
Well, all right.
Brian's going to be the reasonable one here.
There you go. There's reason and logic. All right, so let's go ahead and tackle this NFC West first, because that's gonna really set the table for what happens. So we have the reeling Rams that Chris had as a Super Bowl pick, and I was there with you until I wasn't. But so we have the reeling Rams and the desperate Cardinals. So what comes out of this? Do the Rams use this as a get right, or do the Cardinals make their true stab to being a playoff team? I'm not going to lie, I'm going Cardinals here.
I am too, because I don't know if it's official, but I know Jared Goff's throwing thumb is majorly messed up. So yeah, I
Oh,
got
he's
the
having
Cardinals.
surgery. He's having surgery.
That's right.
I think
Okay.
he's missing
Yep.
a week or two. So yeah, he's not playing today.
Yeah.
Cardinals.
Cardinals. Even if Goff was playing, I've never really trusted him as a quarterback. And
Oh, no.
like, just he can show up for a game, no doubt about it. I mean, think of the game against us where it was 54-51. I mean, he can throw it lights out when he can or when he needs to. But yeah, sometimes he just doesn't turn it on. And I feel like that would have been this game.
No coach is making a quarterback look better than Sean McVay is making Jared Goff look competent. So yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence in Jared Goff.
Wow.
No.
Okay. Seahawks over Niners. We good with that? Seahawks
Yeah,
go in
Seahawks.
blazing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm.
Okay. All right. So at this point, we have let's do the South. So Saints over Panthers and Bucks over Falcons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't see why I wouldn't. Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm not mistaken, we have one game left to Vikings Lions. Make it a tie or pick one.
Vikings. The Lions are terrible.
Vikings.
Okay.
Dalvin Cook.
Okay. So we're down to one game, and it's the Bears and the Packers. So let's just do a real quick thing here. If the Bears win this game, the Saints get the number 1 seed. The Bears make it into the playoffs. The Rams are sent home, and we have Bears Packers part 2 or part 3
wow.
in the first week of the playoffs. This is what I think is a more reasonable situation to expect, but it is a Soldier Field.
And Chicago's rolling right now.
And
yeah.
all this talk about Mahomes playing his way out of the MVP race, is it possible that Rodgers could play his way out even more by having a bad outing in Soldier Field? I think this is possible.
I don't even know how Rodgers necessarily came into the MVP conversation when for the first half of the season, he wasn't even a part of the conversation, really. It was Mahomes and it was Wilson.
Yeah.
And so to just come out of really left field just kind of perplexes me. So, yeah, he can play himself out of it. Absolutely. I don't see why he wouldn't since he came out of nowhere. He should be able to go out of nowhere, too.
So we're rooting for chaos and going Bears.
Man, Mitch Trubisky. I think it's going to be close. If you want to go Bears, I'm fine with that.
Adrian?
It's a divisional game.
Yeah.
And like you said, the Bears are playing better than they should be, to be honest.
Agreed.
I'm going to probably go the Bears.
Brian?
I'm going to go the Bears because I never really have trusted Green Bay all this season. And when the going gets rough, I think they're just going to get kind of smacked around again like they have in the past couple of seasons when things get tough. So it's going to start here.
Brian?
I'm going to go Bears.
My instincts are leaning towards Green Bay. When you have an MVP season that Rodgers is having, it's like I tend to think that he'll find a way to pull it out. But yeah, Soldier Field though, the Bears are tough. So I'll go with you here, guys. Go with Bears in this one.
I'm going to assault my sensibilities with you guys, and we're going for the Bears. So this is what we're thinking here. So we're going to have 2 really good divisional matchups in the 3-6. With Pittsburgh hosting Baltimore and the Packers hosting the Bears. I don't think the NFL could be more happy with something like this laying out. So real quick, if this is the way everything lines up, I'm going Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Miami in the AFC, and then I would go Seattle, Green Bay, Tampa in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Okay, Adrian?
I agree.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. All right, so that is our playoff machine scenario. So next thing that we get into is fantasy. So we have a boom bust and an okayest player. And I'm going to go ahead and kick this one off. And this is going to be all about me this week. I ran 4 fantasy teams. I won 2 titles. and I took third in another. So this is all going to be based on the type of stuff that I get. So my fantasy boom is Myles Gaskin. He took the Miami backfield just straight back. He's the one in charge of it, scored 31.4. I could very easily have gone with Josh Allen again, who had 35.3. Both of those guys were on my team that I cared the most about winning, which was my big money league with all the college friends. So those are my booms. My bust was Tony Pollard, who I put in thinking he was going to be getting a sharing of the load from Zeke Elliott. And I could also go with DJ Chark, who I've been just absolutely wrong every time I've played or not played him. Left him on the bench this week.
He was decent this week.
Yeah, he scored 14 this week.
Yeah.
And so when the whole thing ended, I had lost my title matchup in the money league by 0.16. And then they did a stat correction on my most okayest player, Nyheim Hines. He had a catch taken away. So I ended up winning this league by 0.34. Sorry, I lost by 0.14. They did the stat correction, took the half point away for the catch. And so I ended up winning this matchup, which is just absolutely insane. It's razor thin margins, but, again, a win's a win's a win. And so that's my fantasy boom, bust, and okayest player. Chris, what do you got?
Well, I did not have a great year in fantasy. I had 3 teams. One made the playoffs, and I ended up making a quick exit. But so I don't have a lot to look on for my own experience. But, for boom, I got to go with Alvin Kamara. I know it's kind of at the surface, it's pretty easy to say that guy, 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Just a historic day for him.
It's the boom of booms.
He is the boom of booms.
You tied Gale Sayers for rushing record.
No kidding. The Kansas Comet.
Yep.
Bust, I got Corey Davis. So he went into last week, 60 catches, 945 yards against that game. Going to that game against the Packers, he was shut out with 2 targets. So if you had some stock in Corey Davis, I feel for you. And my most okayest is DK Metcalf. So he went in projected at 15.3. He ended up coming out with 11.9. So, again, DK Metcalf, I think a lot of people go in hoping that he's going to help carry the load, but he did not do that this past weekend.
Adrian, boom, bust, okayest.
I have to absolutely give Alvin Kamara the shout out this week. Just amazing stats. You don't really see a stat line like this. I'm just going to read off what he had from a rushing perspective. He had 22 rushes, 155 yards, and 6 TDs. If the only other players that have ever done anything close, Charles could have done something like that, but there's not many other running backs out there that could ever even say they can get close to that. Peterson at his prime. But you got to put Kamara up there now. You have to if you weren't doing that before. He's just that good, and he's showing off, and it's amazing. You got to respect the best players. It's
not a single year flash in the pan either.
No, I feel like this was coming at some point, and it finally brewed over this past weekend.
Yeah, all the great players have that game that you can always refer back to, and this is going to be that game for him. So that was my number one thing. But I like to stick on the tight ends when it comes to boom and bust type stuff and the rest of this. So overall, as a bust, I'm looking at Kittle. I know this is a kind of a left field type of pick, but overall, just for a season, he's just been a bust. They went to the Super Bowl, people, and then this season he's just been so off and on. I know he was injured for a while, but it's just been off and on season for him. And so as a bust as a whole, I know he did okay last week, and so that would probably put him in the okayest range for the week as a whole, but for the season, big bust. And for me overall, I'm looking at TJ Hawkinson last week as my actual bust last week. This is kind of weird again because TJ Hawkinson, he had 4 catches, but I feel like a player of his stature and magnitude, he's up there with Waller in terms of the tier of tight ends, and he doesn't play like it all the time. He because he's on the lines, I think.
Wasn't he a top 5 pick too? I can't.
Yes, he was
top 10, but yeah.
Yes, he was. So it kind of bothers me to see someone of his caliber just kind of wasted every week. Doesn't really show up on the blocking end too.
Iowa tight ends.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, you didn't start playing fantasy last week, and we didn't know about it, did you?
No, I'm still in the same position I was last week. No fantasy football team, so I'm useful. I'm not very useful right now.
All right, good stuff. All right, so Adrian, here's something we've been doing at the end of every week. We're going to
Okay.
give you a scenario. You're given 2 days off of work, a flight to Vegas, and a check for $1 million with the stipulation that you have to bet on the AFC champion, the NFC champion, and the Super Bowl champion. So how much money are you putting on each of those 3 picks, and who are you picking?
Okay, well, AFC champion. Come on now, the Chiefs, easily. And I'm going to put. I mean, the returns probably aren't going to be as good as you would expect. So I'm going to put. If we're trying to maximize money here, I'm only going to put $200K on the AFC championship. The NFC championship, I'm thinking it's going to be Saints and the Packers, and I'm going to go Saints. So I'm going to pick the Saints as the NFC champion, and I'm going to bet another $400K. So that leaves me another $400K for the Super Bowl, and I'm putting 400 down on the Chiefs. So 200, 400, 400.
Chris, what's your week look like?
Actually, a little bit more bullish on the Packers now. So I keep saying the NFC doesn't matter, but I'm going to put 100 down on the Packers to come out of the NFC. And then again, AFC is tougher to come out of. So I'll put 250 on the Chiefs coming out of the AFC, even though I feel very confident they will. And then the rest on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Brian, what's your betting look like?
All right, sticking with a half mil on Chiefs, AFC. I'll put 495,000 on the Saints, as I'm leaning with I think I agree with Adrian. I'm leaning towards the Saints on that one. I want to put $5,000 on the Cowboys though for the NFC. I just want to see what happens. I want that money, and I'm just like I want. You ever just want to burn money, but I just want to see what happens because the return to that I want to put this done through an expensive college. So. Kevin
Malone, The Office, says it best. If you're offered 10,001 odds, you take it.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Office reference. Yes. Oh yeah. I forget what he bet on. He was like some terrible actor winning an Oscar. I forget what it was.
So my one's the same as every week. I'm betting $992,721 on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, and that's because the last 4 digits are 2721, which is the Super Bowl date. And so splitting the other 3640 on the Chiefs to win the AFC, and Washington is my hedge fund. That's 3639 on the Washington football team winning the NFC championship. And I feel like that's your 10,000 to 1 odds, and you take them.
There you go.
I believe that if Washington made it to that game, you'd be getting a call from whatever book that you had saying, we want to settle this right now, just in case. So, and I would probably say okay at that point too. But okay, so last question before we get into our last shots. Adrian, Patrick Mahomes puts ketchup on a steak. Would you do that?
Maybe really fancy ketchup. I don't want just like some regular store-bought ketchup. I want some homemade ketchup.
Okay, you grew up in Kansas like all of us, and we're offended. So, all right, man. Well, Adrian, hey, thanks for being on with us today. And the last thing that we always do is everybody gets a chance at a last shot, or you can just say whatever you want. So pardon the interruption. So mine is just basically 2020 was a crazy year. I think we're all happy to have it behind us. The tides appear to be changing for a litany of reasons. So let's make sure that we're thankful for 2020 because it wasn't all horrible for everybody. We as Chiefs fans got our Super Bowl win. So there were certainly silver linings there, but here's a cheers to 2021 and may it be the best one yet for everybody. Go Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Chris, what do you got?
So Adrian, you brought this up before we came on. I was going to bring this up as my final take here is, this weekend is a very insignificant week for the Chiefs, but let's take a trip back to 2006 when that week 17 wasn't so insignificant. So the 2006 Chiefs went into the last week of the season 8-7. What did they need? They had to beat the Jaguars. They needed a loss by the Bengals. They needed a loss by the Titans. And then they needed a loss by the Denver Broncos to the Alex Smith-led San Francisco 49ers. And what happened? Chiefs beat the Jags 35-30. I was there. That was a very interesting game. I remember Damon Heward coming in halfway through the game and throwing a beautiful sideline pass to Eddie Kennison, but that was a very fun day itself. Bengals lost to the Steelers 23-17 in overtime. And the Titans got lashed by a Patriots team that had nothing to play for, interestingly enough, 40-23. And then Alex Smith and crew coming to the rescue on the Broncos, winning with a 39-yard field goal, a 36-yard field goal by, I think Joe Nedney kicked for the Chiefs at one point as well. So there's a bit of an old friend alert too. But as Mitch Holthus calls it, the perfect storm occurred on December 31st, 2006 to get the Chiefs into the playoffs.
Brian, what you got?
Parting shot, just going back to what we talked about earlier and Chris's background there. Search YouTube, Don Terry Poe, search best Kansas City Chiefs play Don Terry Poe. You won't be disappointed. It's a great video.
All right, Adrian, as our guest, what's your last shot?
I still remember the broadcast angle of that. One of my favorite plays of all time. Don Terry Poe is like a refrigerator truck just barreling and then just tosses this beautiful floater over everyone's heads. Amazing. But aside from that, I want to be thankful for everything that's happened throughout the year and that we're still here. And I mean, there's a lot of bad things that have happened, but I mean, if you have to look past all the bad, there's a lot of good that happened in 2022 for a lot of us. So taking the strides and moving forward, I just want to be thankful for everything that's happened and hope that this playoff season goes as well as we think it's going to. Thinking back in the past, we've had a lot of bad seasons, and we've also had a lot of close seasons where we haven't had the number 1 seed, we got the 2 seed, or we had a fight for the 1 seed. This has been the easiest 1 seed I've seen a number 1 team get in a long while. It's like every 5 years a team gets it, and without really having to really fight off a second contender. This year the Steelers just fell apart. No other team was close enough to really catch up after that once that started happening. So I mean, it's a blessing in its own self. And now we just get to rest up basically for essentially 3 weeks and kind of think about what we want to do here. So it's going to be interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, and go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.